I found out my son wasn't eating, for a heartbreaking reason. I only discovered it by accident, doing laundry one night after a long shift. There was a crumpled note tucked deep in Tyler's pocket from his teacher. She was worried. Tyler hadn't been eating his lunch for several weeks. At first, I was confused. I packed his lunch every morning. I even skipped meals sometimes just to make sure he had something decent. I figured maybe he was just being picky. That night, after homework, I asked him about it. At first, he just shrugged and said he wasn't that hungry, but I pressed a little harder, and eventually he looked down and said, "I've been giving it to Mr. Wilson. He looks hungrier than me, Mom." That sentence knocked the air out of me. I didn't even know who Mr. Wilson was. I barely slept that night. I was exhausted from working 2 jobs, but I stayed up anyway. The next morning, I made 2 sandwiches, one for Tyler and one for Mr. Wilson. I didn't say anything, just packed his bag and waited. That afternoon, I left work early and followed him home from a distance. I watched as he crossed the street, pulled both sandwiches from his backpack, and handed them to a man sitting by the bus stop. They talked for a minute. Tyler smiled and waved before heading home, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Later that night, I asked why he hadn't told me sooner. He hesitated. Then he said quietly that he'd overheard me on the phone with the bank. He heard the words "losing the house." He thought maybe if he saved food, it would help somehow. I didn't even know he'd heard. That night, after Tyler was in bed, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by bills and cried. The fridge was nearly empty. I didn't want my 10-year-old carrying the weight of survival on his back. The next morning, I swallowed my pride and went to the school counselor. I told her everything. She connected me to a few local resources. That same afternoon, I stood in line at a food bank for the first time. I felt sick with shame until I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Parker, volunteering there. She wasn't surprised to see me. She hugged me tight and said, "Surviving isn't something to be ashamed of." She told me about the year she had to do the same thing. Things started to change after that. Tyler got into the free lunch program. Mrs. Parker offered to watch him after school so I could pick up extra shifts. Some days, Tyler would come home with a bag full of cafeteria leftovers. One afternoon, he came home beaming, clutching a bag of apples. "I asked the lunch lady if I could bring these for dinner," he said proudly. Then one evening, there was a knock at the door. Tyler had gone out to deliver sandwiches to Mr. Wilson like always. When I opened it, Mr. Wilson was standing there holding Tyler in his arms. Tyler's knee was bleeding and he was covered in dirt. He'd fallen hard. Mr. Wilson had carried him all the way home. I got them inside, patched Tyler up, and then looked at Mr. Wilson. Really looked at him. He was rail thin, pale, like he hadn't eaten properly in weeks. I invited him to stay for dinner. We didn't have much, but we made it stretch. That night, Mr. Wilson told me his story. He was a veteran. PTSD had wrecked his life after he came home. He lost everything. He said he was too ashamed to go to the VA for help. I convinced him to try. I drove him there myself the next morning. Turned out, he qualified for benefits. He got into temporary housing not long after. A few weeks later, he came back, not for food, but to help. He used to be a carpenter. He started fixing little things around the house, then bigger things. Then other neighbors started dropping by. Someone would bring food, someone else would offer a hand. Fridays became a tradition, a community dinner, something bigger than any of us ever expected, all because one little boy noticed someone hungrier than himself.